Mem, no, Sam.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
Samach Tes at the bottom.
yeah, so we're up to no, up to Anavah.
I know. Oh, yes, you're correct. I know at the bottom.
Okay, so the talking about Gaiva being and Shikros being related to each other, and but a person wants to everything is his own in order to have utmost pleasure. So he goes into Gaiva, which is a form of drunkenness where a person is focused completely on his own personal pleasure. And he says, picking up here, Ish Kozeh, Lo Yaboli De Chacham Amitis. Emes. Mashchis nafsho meikart kunusai. He can't come to True Chachma. He can't really taste what Avodah is about. He destroys his soul from its main character. Alkein yabol adam lasig das emes. So a person should get true das. Look always at what he's lacking for is perfection. Now show the Beikar ba'avas surah lo'amim, and his nefesh should cling to the love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sha'kovet shalom ba'oz v'chedva b'mkomo. Covet is Hashem's, and strength and joy are in His place. Okay, a person should never come to think that that which is not in him is in him. The satisfaction of his simcha, which is desired, hatov amiti, is hatov amiti, v'asagas hadeos hatorah. So you say a person can deceive, just like a drunk can deceive himself into thinking that my simcha is going to come from some other source. And certainly about guy can also deceive himself into thinking his simcha is from some other source. But he says, no, the simcha which you want to accomplish, and hatov amiti, v'asagas hadeos hatoros, v'amidos hakdosh l'amitasan. So he says simcha is the true good, which is to have pure perspectives and holy character traits. And don't at all exaggerate more than you really are. He says the reason why a person would exaggerate what they are and hold themselves on a higher level than they really are. He says a person, it's interesting perspective. A person depicts himself as having more, being on a higher majority than actually is, because that way there are no demands upon him. He perceives that he has, in his limited perspective and his tranquility, the pleasantness of his tranquility, he's fine. He doesn't have to do anything, right? A gaiva and a shikar have no aspirations. They're living completely in their present of arrogance, pride, or drunkenness. Says Rabbi Kook, you don't get quiet and you don't get a holy pleasantness unless you put things on in the proper place, in their true place. And even if you come to know how much you're lacking from shlemus, that's a bit okay. In other words, don't think that in order to be happy, you have to embellish what you are and to regard yourself as being more accomplished. No, if you know what you're not, that won't deprive you of being sameach in whatever you have. He's not bringing it down, but I think that is a part of Ezu Asher Sameach B'Choko, right? In other words, your chelek, which you have now, it should give you simcha, even if it's not on the level of your aspirations or your delusions. Which is interesting perspective. Why? He says shekevan shedeosav umidosav hochos al derech cheshbon ha'emes. If or since your your intellectual perspectives and your character traits are going along a true reckoning. Ein rayon echad makebes chavero klal. The I'm not sure what he means by that. One idea
I
is,
think he, I
yeah,
think he means that he talked about before how some midos sort of overlap each other or
uh,
push each other aside, and I think he's saying here if you have the true understanding of where you are, so ein rayon echad ma'akev es klal, so then your each midah that you have is clearly in the right, so to speak, position, I guess, or the right pathway, and so therefore one thing is not overlapping the other.
okay,
That's
I think it sounds right.
perhaps I
Uh,
don't know.
let's say I think we'll be able to figure out from the next contradistinction also to this. Doesn't consider it doesn't reckon truly where he's holding. He can't be happy unless he thinks of himself as perfected without a chisaron. So evidently, the person who makes a cheshbon emes has simcha in the fact that he makes a cheshbon emes. A person who's a fool, he's not prepared to make a cheshbon emes, and therefore he can only find happiness in depicting himself as perfected already. But if he's willing to countenance that he has some shortcomings, his simcha will be impeded by him. Even on things he should be happy. Simcha is not contingent on true knowledge or awareness, but rather on an imagined depiction. So the most I would give for myself personally is that I tend to be I'm not sure this actually works out with what he's saying, but I tend to regard myself as lacking simcha because I never became a Rosh Yeshiva. I always wanted to be a Rosh Yeshiva. And
Me too.
so
They even trained me for that.
okay.
They made me learn with the Rosh Yeshiva.
So that really obviously is not the way it's supposed to be. Person's supposed to feel, okay, you know what? I pursue Emes. Again, if I pursue Emes and I'm trying to work on myself as an individual, so then I should not need any tzir dimyoni in order to make myself happy. I'm not 100% convinced because I don't know if I call this actual simcha. One could call it shalva, I think, more than simcha. Person should be tranquil. Person should be feel that whatever I'm doing, if I'm doing things l'shem shamayim and I'm doing things with bakashas emes, okay, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. A simcha, I'm much more of, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I probably did, that I'm much more of a Talmud of Viktor Frankl, and therefore I see simcha only as the byproduct of accomplishment. So therefore, it's not enough to have a bakashas emes. That's good, but you have to have some accomplishment with that bakashas emes in order to be besimcha. You want to respond to that?
Yeah, that's very interesting what you said. I have, I daven at the Chabad, and of course, the Hasidim are very, it's very important for them to have simcha. It's something that they emphasize a lot, and they talk about, and of course, when they say to me these things, I say, I don't even know the definition of the word simcha. Nobody, I learned for many years, but nobody ever taught me the definition. What does it mean? Is it an individual thing for each person? Is it a more general tranquility, as you said, or is it a satisfaction what does it mean?
Uh,
Happiness, I mean, we can throw around different terms, but if I don't know even the definition of the word,
right.
then I have a very hard time trying to achieve that
The Chabad definition of simcha is more in line with the term sasan. It's an exuberance. It's not
level.
simcha in the classic sense, which means happiness.
Yeah.
It's exuberance, and it's somewhat superficial, right? Because exuberance is an art is a superficial quality, right?
Right.
You dance, you sing, you drink. That's exuberance. Internal happiness. I don't think Hasidus places much of an emphasis on simcha as internal happiness either, according as Rav Kook depicts it, which is a Cheshbon Emes, because in Hasidus there's not much emphasis put on Cheshbon Emes, or the way the way I'm defining it based on Viktor Frankl, that it's having accomplished some meaning in life, because the Chassid is told, mitzvah gdol lios b'simcha tamid, even beyond accomplishing kihuzeh. So it's much more of an idea of sason than simcha. Okay,
I see. Yes.
yeah, okay,
I think that to me, when I'm discussing this with my friends at the Chabad, it's very, they don't have like it's just they don't have a specific definition. They have more general principles, and so as you said, a sort of exuberance, but also like they have a certain satisfaction. In other words, I don't mean this as a criticism because it's certainly a derech, but I haven't seen someone uh, dissatisfied with his madrega like
right,
I am always dissatisfied with mine.
right,
I'm always saying to myself, you could go a little more, you could do a little more, you could go a little higher, you should do this, try this. That's not there over there. They have a certain sort of satisfaction, or I don't know if that's the right word. They sort a full. I don't know the word, but they have a certain feeling that I'm here and I'm doing what Hashem wants and I'm following what my Rebbe told me, and so therefore I'm in good shape.
right. It's again,
I never think that. I've never thought that in my whole life, that I'm in good shape. I'm always wanting more, trying more, feeling that I'm not doing enough,
right,
adding, changing, trying. That's not there.
right, absolutely not. So Rav Kook is saying that even you should be besimcha, right? But it's not the same type of simcha, obviously, as the Chabad type of simcha. It means somebody who's has a bakasha of Emes has to have a simcha. Now let's see how it continues. If it is if his imagination, he picks him a chisaron, shuv ein lo makom l'simcha. He's not going to be happy. Imagination is close to chomer b'tivo. Interesting. I wouldn't say that, but he says imagination is very materialistic, and ve'eno racha b'gvulav, and it's not broad in its horizon. Sheikabel etzio shemalas emes imtzia chisaron b'vas achas. It can't split. It can't bifurcate itself. That you will be happy with your madrega of Emes at the same time that you have a chisaron. I'm not sure why not. I think imagination is capable of that, but Rav Kook is saying no. The person lives in imagination. I guess he lives in a fantasy world. He lives in an alternative reality. So therefore, it has to be a perfected one. And imagination is going to strive to perfect it in his own imagination. The knowledge of pure intellect. Exactly the opposite we would think. We would think imagination is without boundary, because you can imagine anything. And that the strict thought is restricted. There's parameters. Saying the opposite. Saying imagination is something which demands the exclusion of Emes in order to be fully imaginative in order to be fully, in order to create that fantasy of self, which a person has. Whereas intellect allows you to be critique and at the same time expand yourself to areas of exploration which your imagination will not take you there. Again, it's pretty much the opposite of what I would normally understand to be the difference. עכשיו, בלי מצרים דחוקים, מניח כל דבר מכונו, ואינו זז משמוח בחלקו הטוב, here it is, שמח בחלקו. ישמח בחלקו הטוב עם עוצם כוספו למעלות חסרונותיו, together with his great yearning to fulfill his חסרונות. שמרגישים מאוד, which he feels very much. V'anovim yirshu aretz. So evidently, this pasuk sums it up. The anovim, you inherit the land. V'arov shalom yisangu, and a great peace they will derive pleasure. So again, the whole chapter is full of chidushim, but certainly what we learned tonight is a tremendous chidush that a person who has a histaklus, a mabat of emes, who's an onav by definition, he will have true tainug of shalom, as opposed to a person who is living in dimyon. Okay, I hope we'll define it more in the next perek. But
I saw one of these Chabad things I was looking at. They had a story. Some Hasidim came to I guess it was the Alter Rebbe, and they said, we're so poor, we have so much difficulties. Our clothes are all ripped, and we have nothing, and we don't know how to overcome this feeling. So he told them, go into the base medrash and talk to Reb well, he probably said Reb Mendel. Talk to Reb Mendel over there in the base medrash. So they go over there, and there's a guy learning, and he has all ripped clothes, and he's not in good shape physically. You know what I mean? He doesn't have a lot of gashmis, let's just say. And so the Hasidim say, we're supposed to ask you, how do you overcome your difficulties? The fact that you don't have anything, and how do you remain focused and continue? He says, I don't have nothing. I don't understand what you're talking about.
It's the Rebbe Reb Zusha.
Why are you asking me?
It's the Rebbe Reb Zusha.
So
it's the Rebbe Reb Zusha.
Okay.
Okay.
It must be a famous story then. I don't know their Meissen very well. So, but anyway, so the whole thing is that it's like he once said about the two guys from the yeshiva guys who were sitting on the mountain deciding, to not be frum anymore, and they said we'll never be happy, right? Because we know the reality, and we can't fool ourselves. So that's the way I always feel. I always feel like the people that I knew who were true, modest, Anavim type people, they had no concept of any type of guy, but they just didn't view themselves that way. How am I, who doesn't have that outlook, supposed to achieve that tranquility and that Emes? I don't view myself like the real Anavim, who don't even think they're Anavim. Moshe Rabbeinu, he didn't think he was an Anav. He never thought about it. If you think about it, you're already a Nagaya B'Davar.
So I think the Rav Kook focused more on Emes than on Anavah for that reason. In other words, and Anav, you can't work. It's very hard to work at being an Anav, but it's easier to work on a Cheshbon Emes. Not saying it's easy, but it's easier. So he says the net result of having a Cheshbon Emes is that you're an Anav. Focus on the Cheshbon Emes.
Yeah. That's a good answer. The Masil Zasharv says that Anivus is the hardest one.
Right.
He says it in several places.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. So
okay, I always say, I might say about myself. I said this, and I probably told you who was this. I once said in class, I said, listen, I know I'm the smartest person in this building. So I'm also the biggest Anav because I don't relate to you as if I am the smartest person in the building. Okay, so
Yes.
that is now I'm not saying I'm really an Anav, but that's really that is the definition of Anav, is to know the truth and
Yeah.
to not
Yeah.
sort of give you airs.
I remember when I was learning in the Beit Zion, so there was a Rebbe there, Price. He was just a tremendous person, and he never nothing. He was handicapped. He had trouble walking, and he was very handicapped physically. But and if you know Telstone, so you know that the Rebbeim live on the bottom of the hill and Yeshiva's on the top of the hill. But he would get up every day and start walking up the hill like, like everybody else was walking up the hill. It would take him, 30, 40 minutes to get up the hill where it took us 10. But he never, if someone's drove by in a car, so they would always stop and pick him up. But he never like asked anybody for a ride or anything. He just got up, he got dressed, he walked out of his apartment, and he started walking up the hill like everybody else. He never had like a cheshbon, oh, maybe this guy will pick me up, or I should ask him. He never even thought about that. You know what I mean? It's not like he knew he needed some help. He didn't care. He just, I'm like everybody else. He just walked the hill. And he was that way in all things. He's a tremendous Talmud Chacham and a Masmid and such a Baal Mussar, but he never, he had the lowest shear in the whole yeshiva. Like the guys who, could barely read Hebrew, so that was his shear. And he loved those guys, He had them over at his house, and he on Shabbos, he loved those guys. And he had the lowest shear. He's a big Talmud Chacham. I mean, a big Talmud Chacham. But he had the lowest shear. He never cared. He never cared.
Right. That's true.
Didn't matter to him. Yeah, yeah. I think about it, and well, unfortunately for me, I always thought, well, why am I going to go bother Rabbi Price? He doesn't, he has the lowest shear, but he knew everything. He knew he was. I didn't take advantage of it. You know what I mean? I could have gotten a lot out of it. But everybody was like, "Oh, Rabbi Price, he has the lowest shear. The guys can't even read there. What does he teach them from the Gemara? You know what I mean? They don't even know how to read." But he never cared. He taught them, and he told them stories and taught them, and they loved him, and he loved them. It was like a time warp. It was like you don't see that. You don't see that. People are not like that. You don't meet many people like that. Anyway,
Okay.
so
To be continued.
yes, sir. Very good. Very interesting discussion tonight. Thank you very much. Have a good week.
Okay. Shkoyach.
Take care.